Welcome, Mr. Sajedi.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
There's a lot of information we have on Ahmad Fardid, the philosopher of violence or the ideologue of violence, the person in Iran who influenced many thinkers and ideologues of nowadays and many action takers, responsible people from regime in Iran. So now we want to know in this sixth series of focusing on Ahmad Fardid, we want to know some people who work in politics of nowadays who are influenced by Ahmad Fardid and in which way they were influenced by his ideology.
Of course, but first I'm going to explain about the link between the Fardid ideas and the political events and streams that we have had during past 4 decades. Maybe you have heard a few days ago one of the top leaders of the Hezbollah is killed by Israel. His name was Ibrahim Abu Aghil, I think. And maybe you have heard that he was fugitive and he was wanted more than 4 decades for his role, his leading role in exercising, in carrying out a suicide bombing on the embassy of the United States in Beirut in 1983. Maybe you have heard. Oh, and of course, the April 18, 1983 bombing on the United States embassy was a suicide bombing on the embassy that was in Beirut, Lebanon, which killed more than at least 32 Lebanons, 17 Americans, and 14 visitors who passed by the embassy. While initially was claimed that it was done by the Islamic Jihad, but later became that attack was arranged by the Hezbollah, by this guy Ibrahim Abu Aghil, and was supported by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Nobody can deny that this attack, which was the first attack or the biggest attack on this diplomatic embassy, which targeted the United diplomatic institutions, was the biggest one till then. Was inspired by the occupation of the embassy, United States embassy in Tehran in 1979. The occupation of the embassy in Tehran, which was occupied in 1979, was a special moment of relation between Iran and United States, because as we know now, the United States then helped the revolutionary then to take the power, and for them was a little bit unacceptable that the revolutionaries occupied the embassy, and the occupiers took 52 American citizen diplomats for more than 444 days, and the helplessness and passiveness and weakness of the United States government, democratic government then, the Jimmy Carter, the administration of Jimmy Carter then, marked an turning point in the history of the United States. Of course, we have to note that then was also era that the U.S. troops in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Laos, they were defeated and they had to leave the region. The Afghanistan was also occupied by the Russian troops, and then it seemed that the containment policy was broken and didn't work anymore. But in this among all of these, we see that the thoughts and philosophy of Mr. Fardid inspired as a foil for this for the acting of the Iran, for the exercising role by the Iranian regime for all these violence acts. Nobody can deny that the bombing attacks in Beirut in 1983 was inspired by the occupying of the embassy, United States embassy in Tehran in 1979, and it is clear that the embassy occupiers were also students and influenced, and at least influenced by the Ahmad Fardid, through his philosophical ideas, particularly was his anti-Western and anti-modernism. And the people then thought that by fighting with the modernism, they have to also fight with the Western, and that's why the occupying of the embassy was one of these steps. I have to point out that the Fardid, of course, was a philosopher and not a political organizer. We have to be able to make a distinction between this concept and to this identity. I have already explained about two philosophers in previous session that were affected by the idea of the Mr. Fardid, but we have also note that the philosophy by self, in relationship with the science, with the different branches of science, acts as an hub. And it means that if you can, because the different branches of the science are connected with the philosophy. Philosophy is connected with all branches of the science, and if you can characterize the hub by your own favorite characteristics, then you can characterize also the science, the connected science to philosophy by your own favorite characteristics. It means that the other science in Iran, which were affected and connected to the philosophy, like politics, like culture, in psychological, for example, all of them were characterized by the characteristic of fighting with the West. For decades, for more than 3 decades, 30 years, this thinking that we have to fight with the West and this thing that the West is our enemy was a default thinking. In education, in culture, in music, in all branches of the social life, this was a default that we are in fight, we are in everlasting fight with the West, and all of the, for example, legislature, all of, for example, literature, all of the social life attitude by this principle. Recently, after that, the computer and the social media made the nations closer together. The new generation, they make a question that why we have to fight with, why we have to fight with the West, why we have to be in war with the West. Even when, for example, the officials delegated their children to study or to enjoy the gifts in the West, always the reason was that we are going to make some base for fight with the West inside the West. With this introduction, I have to say that all of the students of Mr. Fardid generalized his method of thinking to the various and different branches of the society. One of them that I can name here, and the other I will name in another sessions, because each session, each name I have to delve deeply and explain about that, is Mr. Larijani. Mr. Ali Larijani, he was one of his students of the Mr. Fardid, and he was always during 4 decades served at the key positions in the Islamic Republic of Iran. One of his key positions was the head of the national TV broadcasting for, I think, that more than 10 years. In this position, of course, he was working with the ministry or deputy of the Ministry of the Intelligence, Mr. Islami or Imami, Said Islami or Said Imami. And you know that he was accused and he was responsible for chain murders, serial murders of the others thinking, are the intellectuals, are the atheists, the people who taught others, and they were killed. Of course, they were killed by the state, but it was showed as if the people who killed these people, they were just autonomous elements in the Ministry of Intelligence. And then Mr. Larijani helped Mr. Imami to make a program on the TV for, based on one-side version, one-side narration of these murders, and they helped them. He used the television for demonize the other people, to demonize the people that who are just ordinary people. They were not revolutionary people, but they were ordinary people. And you know that the demonizing is one step of killing by issuing fatwa or issuing the death. So also in the external dimension, I mean the foreign relation, as I have already pointed out, the explosion, the suicide bombing in the embassy of United States, of course, was the first violence attacks in the Middle East, and we see that the chain of these events has been acted as a domino effect, which was begun with the occupying of the embassy of the United States in Tehran, and they were inspired by the thoughts and philosophy of Mr. Ahmad Fardid. So maybe we can not direct now connecting each violence to Mr. Fardid, but I will claim, and I would like to say that we have to consider these events, this violence now is Middle East in the domino effect. I mean that who has for the first time begun and institutionalized this method of approaching to the problems, to the issues, and we see that in both internal and external relations of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I mean that with its own people and also with the other world, the violence is the central and crucial and core element. And that's why that the Iranian, for example, Iranian regime is already 40 times condemned by in human rights issues by the United Nations. By the human rights bodies of the United Nations, also and sometimes by the European Union as well. Why? This is a question. This is answer to this question, that why the regime of Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, has been always in conflict with both his own nation and the international community, because the violence is institutionalized by the core ideology of this regime.
All right. So thank you very much, Mr. Sajedi. And in our next program, in our next series, we want to look into culture, influence on culture, and art and filmmaking, and we will dive deep into this subject.
Yes, of course, surely.